In this episode, I'm going to try and show you how you can use Blender to create assets for QGIS 3D and upload them to the QGIS Hub. .3D in QGIS has come a long way the past couple of years. It's not perfect by far, but it has come a long way. And if you find some glitches in it, there are some tricks to work around those. For instance, you can just simply close the 3D view and open it again. It might fix your issues. Another thing is that if you use a flat terrain like I'm doing here, it helps to offset the terrain to a positive value and not keep it at 0. And your objects should probably also be above 0. That has helped me a lot in these experimentations. However, there are room for improvement, and QGIS is not by far a dedicated 3D software. And to create 3D objects, you should actually use a dedicated 3D software. And one that is excellent and open source is Blender. And I'm going to be using Blender 2.93 here. And this is what it looks like when you start it at first time. So let me escape this welcome screen. And you have this camera, a cube, and a light source. This video I will start by doing some very basic Blender stuff. So you get some examples on how you can work with Blender to create simple objects that you can use in QGIS. The video will have chapters, so you can skip this initial part and go directly to the next part where I show you how I model trees. And after that I will show you how you package your objects for upload to the QGIS Hub and how you can use it in QGIS. I have not invented any of these methods. I've watched a lot of tutorials on YouTube, and at the end I will give you some links to tutorials that have been really helpful in creating these simple objects in Blender. So let's get started. I will start by activating some form of, what is it called, screencast keys. Yep, there we go. So you can see what I'm pressing down here in the lower left corner. So if I'm pressing the left mouse button, I will do a select. If I press a click on an object, you will see a click. If I press A on the keyboard, I will select all. I press delete to delete all. So first of all, navigation in Blender is best done with a real mouse. You can do it with a touchpad on a laptop, but then you need to use the tools up here. And it really should be done with a mouse. So the left mouse button is interaction with the selected tool. So in this case I have a select box, and that will just make a box to select stuff. Right mouse button is a context menu that changes depending on where you click and what you want to do, what you are doing. The mouse wheel will zoom in and out, and you will see better effects on that later. If you press down on the mouse wheel, you will orbit around this center. And this is how you navigate in Blender. The scale may also be interesting if you are working with objects that should be imported into QGIS. And if you go to, let's see, item, I need to have an item first. So let's add something. Let's add Shift A. You get the add menu, and I can add a mesh, and let's add a cylinder like that. Now I get an item up here. You get some information about this and the object's dimensions, and that could be helpful. So first of all, let me switch to a front view, and that is done by pressing 1 on the numpad. And then I want to move this up, and there's a move tool here, but there's also a keyboard shortcut, that's G. So I press G. Now I can move the object in the camera plane. So I only move it flat from the camera's perspective. If I want to lock it in any of the axis directions, I can press that key. So for instance, if I want to move it up, that's the Z axis. So I press Z, and then it will be locked in that direction. If I don't want to move it arbitrary, I can type in a number. So I want to move it 1 meter up, for instance. Then I press 1. And to confirm, I can left click or press enter. Now I have moved my cylinder 1 meter up, like that. I can scale this object, and there's tools for it. Let's see here, but there's also a shortcut S. I can rotate it, and that's a shortcut R. So this move, rotate, scale, I will use them a lot in this. So if I press scale S, I scale it from the center point. And if I want to scale it by a certain number, I can type in 2. That scales it 2 meters. Like that. I can scale it in a certain direction. So for instance, scale, and I could lock it in the Z direction. Then it will only scale along the Z axis. If I press Shift Z, it will scale on all the other axes except the Z axis. So like that, for instance. To change the geometry here, I need to go into edit mode. So right now I'm in object mode, and I can switch that to edit mode. I can also jump between object and edit mode by pressing tab on the keyboard. So that is also something I will do a lot. And as you see here, in object mode I have some tools, and in edit mode I have a few others as well. So I have the select box tool, and I can select things. And now I selected all the vertices up here. That's because I have vertex select activated. I can have line edge select selected, and then only lines will be selected. I can also have this face select option, and then faces will be selected. I will keep it at vertex select. So if I select these, I have all the vertices on top here selected, and you might think that if I do the same in the bottom, I would select all the vertices on the bottom. But if I rotate, you will see that no, only the visible vertices have been selected. And in order to work around that, you can switch to wireframe mode. And you do that by pressing Shift Z. Then if you do the same, they will all be selected. And you can move these in individual by using G for move, locked in the Z axis, like that. You can select scale, S for scale, like that. In that way you can move your vertices around. If you want to extrude this up and not just move it, you want to extrude that area, you select that face or the vertices around it and press E for extrude. And that will extrude in the most logical direction, but you can also lock it if you want that. So like that. Let me scale that down a bit, like that. I may want to have another loop around this cylinder down here, and then I can use a loop cut. There's a tool for that here, but there's also a shortcut, Control R. So I just hover with my mouse roughly where I want the loop cut, press Control R, confirm that that's the loop cut I want, left mouse button, and then I can slide it to exactly the point where I want it, like there perhaps, and confirm with a click. And let's scale that inward a bit, like that. Let me switch back to object mode and solid and move that away on the Z axis. And let's add another shape. Shift A, mesh, cube. G, lock it on the Z. Oh, lock it on the Z axis, like that. To modify a shape like this in Blender, you need to first of all be in edit mode, and then you need to work with vertices, lines and faces, and you can't just modify it however you want, easily at least. So you need more vertices and more lines and faces. And to do that, there's the loop cut tool. So for instance, I can add a loop around this by just pressing Control R. I thought so. Yeah, there we go. So if you get close to a border, Blender will understand where you want to place your loop cuts. So in this case, I want 2 loop cuts around this area. And in order to get more than one, I can just scroll, use the scroll wheel to increase that to the desired amount of loop cuts. So now I have 2, I confirm. I can then move them, but I'll keep them in the middle and confirm, left click. I can add more loop cuts here. And I can add more here. And let's add one more here. To select a loop cut, I can go into line select, and if I click here, I will select this line segment, but if I hold down Alt when I do it, it will select the loop around it. So this I can then move on the y-axis, G for move, and lock it on the y-axis and move it there. I can press Alt, click, G, Y, move, like that. Now I can work with the faces here. Let's see. There's an extrude and there's an extrude manifold. There's a lot of tools here. You can use them in different ways. The extrude region, you need to select a region, and then the plus means that it will add an extrusion like this. So you can move it anyway, or you can use the plus sign to move it in the specific direction. Let me undo. The extrude manifold, that will not add anything, so you can do that, use that to push into stuff. You can also elongate them, but they will not create new faces or lines. So maybe like that. Select that one. And I can select that face, click delete, face, click that, delete, face, delete, face, delete, face, delete, edge, like that. I can lower this one to a desired level, and then I can select the next face and press Shift R to repeat that, and that will bring them to the same level. I can join to wireframe mode, point select, try and select only those, move them on the Z axis down a bit, like that. Then I can go in with this one, bring it up. To select more objects than one, just hold Shift down when you click them. So click the first one and then the second one. And here I may want a bevel. And the bevel maybe more than one segment, like that. Yep, you get the idea. You can build up really complex shapes by modifying the simple shapes that are already available. Planes, cubes, circles, etc. Even a monkey. But none of these look really like a tree. So in order to create a tree, let me just select all and delete them. Depending on the type of tree you are going to model, you can do it in a lot of ways. But if the tree trunk and branches are a bit more organic, the best or a good way that I've learned through tutorials is to use a simple skeleton that you then apply a skin to. So in order to do that, you need somewhere to start. So let's add a plane. It's under mesh plane. Go into edit mode and let's remove 3 of the 4 vertices. So delete the vertices and we only have 1 left. We use select box tool. I will extrude that, E, on the Z axis. Let's go up to roughly 1.5 meters. The this is now just a line, 2 vertices and a line. And that is how I will control this tree branch or tree trunk. But to apply a skin, you will need to add a modifier. And you find the modifiers in the modifier properties. And that's this spanner or wrench. So add a modifier, skin. And now you have a really simple skin. If you want it more organic or round, you can add a subdivision surface modifier. And you can increase the number of subdivisions however much you want. But keep in mind, the more complex an object becomes, the bigger the data will become, and the more problematic it will be to render if you add a lot of objects. So try and keep it as simple as possible. I will just have one level of subdivision here. So that's my start for the tree trunk. So let's go into wireframe mode and extrude from this vertex. Extrude on the z-axis like that. I can move it with G like that. I rotate it around, extrude again on the z-axis, move it a bit like that. Let me select all and move on the plane, something to the center like that. And if you want to pan the entire window, pressing down on the mouse wheel will orbit, but if you press shift when you do that, you will pan around. Okay, a tree trunk is not this uniform, so I may want to scale it to be a bit more narrow in the top. So by selecting the vertices I want to scale and then press Ctrl A. I'm not scaling the geometry, I'm scaling the skin. Ctrl A. Ctrl A. And also at the bottom, it shouldn't be round like this. So let me add a loop cut here. And since it's just a line, it will just be a point. There's fine. Then I want to slide this along the line. And I do that by pressing Shift V. Then I can slide it down almost to the bottom. And I select the bottom vertex and scale that out to flare it a bit like that. That feels more natural. Okay, some branches. And I think I will put one branch here. Extrude. Scale it in. And you remember, I will extrude in the plane of the view. So in order to change the direction of the next branches, I can move it around like that perhaps. Extrude. There. Scale it. Go back to that one. Extrude. And scale it. Yeah, and they are far too big. So let's scale them down. And I want a branch here. Extrude. And when you are done with modeling, you can view it in object mode and a bit more solid. And I think that looks okay for a very basic tree. So let's get some green on this model. I will not add individual leaves to this. It will be a very stylized clusters of leaves. And to do that, I will add iconosphere or icosphere. So Shift A, Mesh, icosphere. And before I do anything, I can control the number of subdivisions here in the lower left. And if you don't see this box, you can expand it here. And this is only available until you click it. So do this first. And you can increase the number of subdivisions to make it smoother or adding more vertices. But I will keep it at 2, so it's reasonably low. Let me move that to here. I don't want all the leaf clusters to be the same, so I will duplicate this by pressing Shift D. Yep, that was right. And one more. Now I have 3 of those icospheres. Let's select them all and jump back into edit mode. And now I have all 3 of them. I can do mesh, transform, randomize. And then I can increase or decrease the randomization of these. That will give me a more inorganic or random appearance. So they don't look like just simple balls. There's another way to do this. So if I Control C that, there's a tool for randomization and it's down here. So if you long press on this button, you can select randomize. Then you get this handle and you can pull that directly to control the amount of randomization. So let's go a bit beyond what is useful. And then I will right click and subdivide. And then I will switch to the smooth tool and use the same and smooth it out a bit like that. That looks pretty organic. Could be passable for leaf clusters. Okay. They don't have to be the same size and so on, but let me just move them to branch level. That and switch here. I will pick this one, duplicate it, move it over here. This one, duplicate it, move it over here, maybe rotate it. Yeah, you can work with the leaf clusters I don't know what the name is actually, but you can even go back into wireframe mode and edit the tree trunk and add stuff to that. But then you need to have the right tool. You can add a new branch here. Maybe it's not a branch. Maybe it's something that's just a cut branch. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can keep modeling until you are satisfied. Let's see. Let's say I'm done with it. I think that this is okay. Maybe not that one. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Now you have only the geometry done, and you also have geometry with modifiers. And in order to continue, you need to apply the modifiers for this tree. Otherwise, it won't work. You need to apply the modifiers, and you need to do that in the correct order. So you have a skin modifier and then a subdivision modifier. So you need to apply the skin modifier first. And you do that by pressing here and apply, or you can just hover with the mouse button over the modifier and press Ctrl A. Now you can't edit the tree trunk in the same way anymore, because now they are all just points and vertices. So you can still select the points, move them around and edit them if you need to. But you can't edit the skeleton that has been skinned anymore. So make sure you are done with your modeling before you apply your modifiers. In order to color this tree, you can do that in a lot of ways. First, I will show you the simple way, and after that, I will get back into Blender and modify it in a bit more tricky way, but in a way that is more flexible. So first of all, select the object you want to add color to. Then you go into this material properties. You add a new material, and in the base color, just click this white area, and let's make this trunk brown, like that. That's okay. And it didn't turn brown, but that's because you are in this solid mode. If you switch to texture rendering or material preview mode, you will now see the brown color. For the leaves, you can do the same. Add a new material, and this should be green, maybe like that. For the other ones, let's see if I can select more than one at a time. I can just select the same material. So now I have the same material for all of them. However, these are now a lot of objects, as you see up here. Iconospheres and my plane. I want to export this to QGIS, and I actually haven't tried exporting it in this way. So I usually select all of them and join them by pressing Ctrl J. Now they are one object, but I can still go into edit mode and edit them individually if I want to. But now they are one object. It's a bit shiny, this tree, so I will go back into this material properties, and for each of the materials I can change how shiny they are by the specular, so bring that down. I can also make them more rough. I usually just bring that all the way up. Let me switch to the other material. And material 1. If I bring the roughness all the way down, it will become very shiny. I don't want that. So and there's my tree object, all done. So let's export it. I go to File, Export as wavefront.obj. Let's just name this tree and export it. And that's done. Let's switch to QGIS. And instead of these spheres, let me switch that to a 3D model and select a file, and we'll go here and select the OBJ file and open, and there's my trees. Right now I need to undo everything. How big are my trees? They are 6 meters high. So they could be bigger. So let's see if I can scale that up. And there are the trees. You may not be satisfied with the colors here, and you want to change that. If you export the model as I have shown here, that will not be possible. At least I don't think so. But I will show you how you can modify your models so they can be changed in color. So let's get back here. And that need to be done with textures. But before I do that, I want to just remove the old materials just to be safe. So I will create a new material, and instead of clicking on a color, I will click on this little color patch just beside the base color and select image texture. I will choose a new image texture. I will call this tree texture. Make sure you don't have any spaces, because sometimes it doesn't work. I will not use this image as a complete and realistic texture. I will only use it as a color palette. So I really don't need a lot of pixels. So I'll just leave that 3 by 3 pixels. That's it. In order to edit this, I need to have an image editor, and there is one built into Blender. So if I move my mouse cursor down here and make it across, I can slide up another panel. It's a bit tricky, So let me do that again. You can also right-click on the border between two areas and do a split. So let's do a is it horizontal split? No. It's a vertical split. Like that. Now I get two windows. They are more or less the same, but I can change one of them into an image editor. And let me select the tree texture. You can also open a texture here. And here we go. There's the image. And in order to edit this image, I need to switch from view to paint. And then I will have to bring out the tools here. And the brush should not be 50 pixels. It should be just 1 pixel. And I want a green color. That. I want a brown, darker color. Like that. That's good enough to start with. In order to apply these colors to my object, I need to unwrap all the geometry in this object. And that has already been done, should at least already have been done. If it hasn't, you can go into edit mode and press U to unwrap. But as you see here, it is already unwrapped. In order to work with this, I need to be in the UV editor. And that's this one. Okay, so let me select the trunk first. And I do that by hovering with the mouse over trunk and pressing L on the keyboard. And there it is. You can't see it, but it is there. I can select it in the UV editor by pressing A and then G to move. Place it on the brown area and confirm with a click. Now that has been UV unwrapped with a brown texture. So let's do the same for the leaves. Hover, press L, 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 L. Like that. Select all by pressing A. And now I need to scale it down. So scale. And let's scale it to 0. Confirm with enter. G to move. And confirm location. Now I have a green leaves and a brown trunk. Go back to object mode. Here we go. Before I save or export this model, I need to save my texture. This is important. So you go to Image, Save As, and in the same folder where I want to export my model, I save the texture. Then I select my object, File, Export, Wavefront, and let's name this Textured Tree. So now I can remove that one and open the Textured Tree OBJ. There we go. Oh, it's very shiny. Let me fix that. Materials. Roughness up, specular down, not that much. File, export, wavefront. That one, export, yes. remove it, add it again. Now it looks better. You may want to change the colors here, and you can do that since there's a texture for it. So I will open a file browser, find my texture, and I will open that with my favorite raster package. You can use any raster package that can read the format. And I may want to change my green color to something autumn red, like that. Save it. Go back to QGIS. I need to reload the model, so remove it and add it again, and now the trees are red. So this is a simple way to change color in your 3D models, as simple as possible for a user without the need to use Blender to edit the model. So as long as you have divided your object into different parts and apply a certain texture to that part, you can edit the colors like this. Okay, I'm done. This is what I want to use or share with others. So how do I share it? Well, I need to package it first of all. So I can the minimum I need is the OBJ and the MTL file. And the MTL file is just a text file. So if you have a texture, it will give the texture name here. So if the textures don't work, you can edit the MTL file to make sure it points to the correct file and they are in the same folder. You need the MTL file, the OBJ file, that's the geometry, and in case you have a texture, you need the texture. So let's compress that into a zip and rename that to tree, leaf, autumn. That's my package. I need a thumbnail. Let me see. Could that be a reasonable thumbnail? Like that, perhaps. Okay, that's saved. Let's go to the browser. There we go. At this site, plugins.qgis.org, there's a hub, and in this hub there's 3D models. Right now there are some models to start with, but by making this video, I'm hoping that in not too long time there will be a lot more assets for us to work with in QGIS. So I'm really looking forward to following how many more models we can create. In order to upload a model, you need to be logged in. And if I log out and you log in, you get a login screen, and you can go to this OSGeo web portal to create a new login that you can use for this. When you are logged in, you go to the hub, you get this form to fill in. So the requirements are a 3D model file, and that should be a zip file with at least the OBJ and MTL files. Let's go to my save folder. My zip file. And a thumbnail. Add one. And give it a name. Give the description and confirm that you can release this as a public domain file, Creative Commons 0, and then you upload it. Hopefully you will get this view, and if you hover with the mouse you will get a spinning object, a spinning cube. If you click that you will get a preview of the object. Like this. And if everything looks okay, you are done. You just need to await the review of this object. And if everything looks okay when they test it, it will be approved and uploaded to the approved objects, 3D models. And you can download them and use them in QGIS. So, as I started to mention, this is modeling is not something I have invented. The most helpful YouTube channel I've found is this Winglet Entertainment. They have really good instructions for how you can create low polygon natural objects in QGIS. So I really recommend you to watch a couple of these tutorials if you want to expand your modeling skills. But hopefully you have some ideas of how you can use Blender to create models, and trees is one thing. We may need other assets as well, so be creative and try and upload as many as you can. See you next time.